Midnight came with thunder. The king's younger brother stormed through the palace courtyard, his face twisted with rage. Guards jumped to attention as he pointed at the palace gate. There, wrapped in dirty rags, slept a beggar. The same beggar who appeared every night. "Drag him away," the brother shouted. "This filth dishonors our family." 4 guards rushed forward. They grabbed the beggar's thin arms roughly. The man's eyes opened slowly. He did not fight. He did not beg. He simply looked up at the angry prince with eyes that seemed to know something no one else did. "Do what you must," the beggar said calmly. His voice was soft but clear. "Dawn is almost here." The guards hesitated. Something in those words made them uncomfortable. The brother's face grew redder. "I said move him," he screamed. But before anyone could act, a cold wind swept through the courtyard. Every torch flickered at once. The beggar closed his eyes and smiled slightly, as if he was waiting for something only he could see. By morning the entire palace was talking. Servants whispered in corners. Courtiers argued in the great hall. The beggar had been sleeping at the palace gate for months, maybe years. No one could agree how long. "He brings bad luck," said Lady Amara, the king's advisor. "Since he arrived, our crops have struggled. Our trade has slowed." "Nonsense," replied another courtier. "Those are natural problems." But fear spread like smoke through the palace. People remembered small misfortunes. A servant who fell sick. A horse that died suddenly. A mirror that cracked for no reason. "He curses us with his presence," whispered the cooks. "He watches us," said the stable boys. The king's brother listened to everything. He smiled. Fear was useful. Gave him power. That afternoon, an elder guard named Kofi was called to the throne room. His hands shook as he bowed. "Tell me about the beggar," the king demanded. Kofi swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, he has slept there for 7 years. Without missing a single night." The king could not stop thinking about the beggar. He watched from his window as night fell. Sure enough, as darkness came, the man appeared. He walked slowly to the palace gate, spread his thin cloth on the ground, and lay down. The king noticed something strange. The beggar never begged. He never called out to passing nobles. He never held out his hand for coins. When servants brought him food from pity, he thanked them but barely ate. He only asked for water. Just water. And silence. "Why does he come here?" the king wondered aloud. "What does he want?" His advisor shook her head. "Perhaps he has nowhere else to go, Your Majesty." But that did not feel right. There was something deliberate about the beggar's presence. Something patient, like he was waiting. That night the king could not sleep. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed. In his dream, he stood before the palace gate. The stones were bleeding. Red drops fell from the cracks, pooling at his feet. A voice whispered, "Remember." The king woke with sweat on his face. His heart pounded. He called for the palace seer immediately. The old woman arrived at dawn, leaning on her crooked staff. Her eyes were clouded with age, but they saw more than most. She listened to the king's dream without speaking. "The gate remembers what the crown has forgotten," she said finally. "What does that mean?" the king demanded. "A debt unpaid. A sin buried. The stones remember even when men forget." The king felt cold. What sin? What debt? But the seer only shook her head. "That is for you to discover, Your Majesty. The beggar holds the key." As she left, the king's brother entered. He had been listening at the door. "Brother," he said smoothly, "this beggar fills your head with worry. Let me handle him. Let me send him far away where he can trouble you no more." The king hesitated, then nodded. That night, the brother gathered his most loyal guards. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we end this." Dawn broke with violence. The king's brother ordered the beggar dragged into the courtyard. A crowd gathered. Servants, guards, courtiers, everyone came to watch. "You bring darkness to this palace," the brother announced. "You will be punished as an example." The beggar said nothing. His face remained calm. Guards chained him to a post before the gate. The same gate where he slept every night. They beat him with sticks. Blood ran down his face. The crowd gasped, but no one stopped them. "Now you see," the brother called out, "what happens to those who disrespect the crown." But as the beggar's blood touched the palace gate, something impossible happened. The chains around his wrists began to glow. They grew hot, then white with heat. Suddenly they snapped open by themselves. The metal pieces fell to the ground with a loud clang. The guards stepped back in fear. The crowd murmured. The beggar remained kneeling, blood on his face, but his eyes were bright. He looked at the brother and smiled slightly. "You cannot chain what you do not understand," he said softly. "The story must go back to understand the present." Years earlier, before the king ruled, before the beggar appeared, there was a young palace guard named Aaron. Aaron was strong and loyal. He trained harder than any other guard. His sword arm was swift. His heart was true. The prince, who would become king, trusted him like a brother. One night, rebels attacked the palace. They came over the walls like shadows. They wanted to kill the royal family and take the throne. Aaron fought like a lion. He stood before the prince's chamber and refused to move. 5 rebels came at him. He wounded 3 and killed 2. When dawn came, the prince was safe. The rebellion failed. "You saved my life," the prince said, embracing Aaron. "I will never forget this." Aaron bowed. "I only did my duty, Your Highness." The prince's younger brother watched from a distance. His face was blank, but his eyes burned with something dark. Jealousy, perhaps, or fear. Days after the rebellion, Aaron was given the honor of night patrol. He walked the palace halls when everyone slept. It was his duty to protect the royal family's rest. One night he heard voices below. He followed the sound to a hidden stairway he had never noticed before. Stone steps led down into darkness. Carefully, quietly, he descended. The stairway opened into a chamber beneath the palace. Torches burned on the walls. And there, carved into the floor, were symbols. Old symbols. Sacred symbols. Aaron's blood ran cold. He recognized them from his grandmother's stories. This was holy ground. Ground that belonged to the forest spirits. Ground that should never be disturbed. But the palace was built here. Right on top of it. On the wall, scratched in dried blood, were words. Taken by murder. Cursed by betrayal. Aaron's heart pounded. He turned to leave and froze. The prince's brother stood at the top of the stairs, watching him. "You should not have come down here," the brother said quietly. By morning everything changed. Aaron was arrested. Guards who once called him brother now grabbed his arms roughly. They dragged him before the prince. "You are accused of treason," the prince said. His voice was cold. "Treason?" Aaron could not believe it. "Your Highness, I saved your life. You were found sneaking through forbidden parts of the palace. You carry stolen royal documents." "That is a lie," Aaron shouted. But when they searched his quarters, they found papers with the royal seal. Papers about palace finances and secret deals. Papers Aaron had never seen before. "I did not take these," Aaron protested. No one believed him. His closest friends in the guard turned their faces away. They would not meet his eyes. Fear ruled them. If they defended Aaron, they might be accused too. The prince's brother stood in the shadows, watching. His face showed concern, but his eyes were satisfied. "I am sorry, Aaron," the prince said sadly. "But I cannot ignore evidence. You will not be executed. That would dishonor your service. But you are exiled. Forever." They took Aaron deep into the forest. They left him at the edge of the spirit lands, where few dared to travel. He was given only the clothes on his back. "Never return," the guards warned. "If you do, you will die." Aaron wandered for days. He ate berries and drank from streams. His heart was broken. He had been loyal. He had been true. And he had been thrown away like garbage. On the seventh night, he collapsed near an ancient tree. As he lay there, an old woman appeared. Her skin was dark as the earth. Her eyes glowed faintly. "You are Aaron," she said, "the one who discovered the buried sin." "Who are you?" he whispered. "I am the keeper of this forest, the guardian of the sacred ground your palace stole." Aaron's breath caught. "I did not know. I did not build." "But you know now," she interrupted. "And knowledge is witness. You cannot speak the truth until the palace itself calls for judgment. That is my vow upon you." "Why?" Aaron asked desperately. "Because patience teaches more than swords," she said. Aaron understood what he must do. He could not speak the truth. He could not accuse the prince's brother. He could not tell what he had seen beneath the palace. Not until the palace itself called for answers. So he chose to wait. He chose to return not as a guard but as nothing, as a beggar. He walked back through the forest. He tore his clothes until they were rags. He covered his face with dirt until no one would recognize him. He became invisible. When he reached the palace, he went directly to the gate. The same gate where he had stood guard 100 times. The same gate where he had protected the royal family with his life. And there he lay down. Every night. Without fail. First no one noticed. Then servants began to whisper. Guards tried to move him, but he always returned. The king's brother saw him and felt uncomfortable, though he did not know why. Aaron waited. 7 years he waited, sleeping at the gate. His presence was a silent accusation. His patience was his power. Strange things began to happen. The palace well, which had given sweet water for 50 years, dried overnight. Not a drop remained. Servants lowered buckets and pulled up only dust. "It is the beggar," people whispered. "He brings curses." The royal horses refused to walk past the palace gate. They would rear and scream when forced near it. Stable boys had to lead them through the back entrance. Flowers in the queen's garden wilted for no reason. Food spoiled faster than it should. Candles flickered in rooms with no wind. Fear spread through the palace like a disease. Servants made signs against evil when they passed the beggar. Nobles avoided the gate entirely. The people of the kingdom heard the rumors. They gathered outside the palace walls. "Why does the king allow this?" they demanded. "Why does he let a cursed man sleep at his gate? What is he hiding?" others asked. The king felt the pressure. His advisors urged him to act. "The people demand answers, Your Majesty. They want to know why this beggar troubles us." The king's brother smiled. This was his chance. Late one night, the king's brother could not sleep. Guilt chewed at him like rats. He sat in his chamber drinking wine, trying to drown his memories. He remembered Aaron, the loyal guard, the man who saved his brother's life, the man he had destroyed. It had been necessary, he told himself. Aaron had discovered the secret beneath the palace. He knew the ground was stolen, the kingdom built on murder. If that truth came out, the crown would fall. The people would turn against them. So he had planted the documents in Aaron's quarters. He had whispered lies to the prince. He had made his brother believe that loyalty was treason. It was necessary. It was necessary. He repeated this like a prayer. But the beggar's face haunted him. Those calm eyes. That patient smile. There was something familiar about him. Something that made the brother's skin crawl. "I should have killed him," the brother whispered to his empty room. "I should have made sure he never returned." He stood abruptly. He would end this tomorrow. Publicly. Completely. No more whispers. No more waiting. The next morning, the brother called for a public trial. All the kingdom was invited. Nobles, merchants, farmers. Everyone came to see. They built a platform in the courtyard. The beggar was dragged before it in chains. The crowd pressed close, curious and afraid. "This man," the brother announced, "has brought darkness to our kingdom. He sleeps at our gate like a curse. Our wells dry. Our horses scream. Our peace is shattered. What say you, is he guilty?" The crowd roared, "Guilty! Guilty!" But then the king stood. His face was troubled. He had been thinking about his dream, about the seer's words, about the strange things that had happened. "Wait," the king said. His voice cut through the noise. "Let him speak. Let the beggar defend himself." The crowd fell silent. The brother's face went white. The beggar stood slowly. His chains rattled. He looked at the king with those calm, knowing eyes. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "are you certain you want the truth?" The king hesitated. Then he nodded. "Speak." The moment the king gave permission, the palace gate cracked. A loud, sharp sound like thunder. A split ran down the center of the ancient stones. The crowd gasped. Guards drew their swords, looking around in panic. But there was no enemy, no threat, only the gate breaking. The beggar felt something shift inside him. The vow, the curse the forest keeper had placed on him, it lifted like fog in sunlight. His tongue, bound for 7 years, was suddenly free. He stood straight. Not like a beggar anymore. Like a soldier. Like a guard. His shoulders squared. His chin lifted. His eyes, once downcast, now blazed with purpose. The crowd murmured. Even in rags, he looked noble. He looked dangerous. "Who are you?" someone shouted. The beggar, no, not a beggar anymore, smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had waited a very long time for this moment. "My name," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "is Aaron. I was once a royal guard. I saved the crown prince's life during the rebellion." The crowd erupted. The king's face went pale. The brother tried to run, but guards blocked his path. "Aaron," the king whispered. "But you were exiled. You were a traitor." "I was loyal," Aaron said firmly. "I discovered a truth someone wanted buried. And for that, I was destroyed." He turned to face the brother. Their eyes met. The brother shook his head frantically. "He lies," the brother shouted. "He is a criminal trying to." "I discovered the secret beneath the palace," Aaron continued, his voice rising. "I found the chamber, the sacred ground, the symbols carved in blood. This palace was built on stolen land, land taken by murder. Your father killed the forest keeper's son to claim this ground. He buried the body beneath the foundation stones." The crowd roared with shock. Nobles covered their mouths. Servants wept. "And you," Aaron pointed at the brother, "you knew I found the truth. You feared I would tell. So you framed me for treason. You planted false documents. You turned my prince against me. You destroyed my life to protect your crown." The brother's face crumbled. "I had no choice," he whispered. "The kingdom would have fallen. So you sacrificed an innocent man," Aaron demanded. The king stepped forward. His face was a mask of confusion and pain. "Is this true? Brother, tell me this is a lie." The brother said nothing. His silence was confession enough. Then something extraordinary happened. The cracks in the palace gate began to glow. Soft blue light poured from them like water. The ancient stones were speaking. People screamed. Some ran. But most stayed, frozen by wonder and fear. Aaron walked to the gate. He placed his hand on the glowing cracks. "The stones remember," he said. "They were witnesses to murder. They hold the truth." As he spoke, markings appeared on the gate. Symbols. The same symbols Aaron had seen in the chamber below. They glowed brighter and brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then the ground beneath the courtyard began to shake. Gently at first, then harder. Stone tiles cracked. Dust rose in clouds. "What is happening?" the king shouted. "The sacred ground is waking," Aaron replied. "It demands justice for the blood spilled upon it. For the keeper's son who was murdered. for the lies told and the lives destroyed. The brother fell to his knees. Please, he begged. I did what I thought was right. The shaking grew worse. The brother tried to run. He pushed through the crowd, desperate to escape the courtyard. His fine robes flapped behind him as he ran toward the palace gate. But when he reached it, the gate would not open. He pulled on the handles. He kicked the wood. He screamed for guards to help him. Nothing worked. The gate stayed shut, as if it had turned to solid stone. Open it, the brother shrieked. Let me out. Aaron watched calmly. The gate will not open for you, he said. It knows what you did. Stones have memory longer than men. The crowd pressed closer. Their faces, once filled with pity for the brother, now showed disgust and anger. He lied to us, someone shouted. He destroyed an innocent man, yelled another. He built our kingdom on blood and secrets. The brother turned, his back against the gate. Fear twisted his handsome face into something ugly. He looked at his brother, the king, with desperate eyes. Please, he begged. I am your blood, your family. The king stood silent, torn between love and justice. The king closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were filled with tears, but also resolve. He stepped forward and removed the royal ring from his brother's hand, the sign of noble birth. You are no longer my brother, the king said quietly. You are no longer noble. You are no longer welcome in this palace. The crowd fell silent, witnessing history. You will leave this kingdom, the king continued. You will wander as Aaron wandered. You will beg as Aaron begged. You will sleep at gates and know what it means to be powerless. No, the brother screamed. Please, anything but that. You will live, the king said, but only to remember what you did. That is your punishment. That is your justice. Guards seized the brother. They stripped him of his fine clothes and gave him rags. They took his sword, his jewelry, his pride. As they dragged him toward the gate, it suddenly swung open. Not to freedom but to exile. The forest beyond looked dark and hungry. The brother looked back one last time. You will regret this, he spat at the king. But the king only turned away. The gate slammed shut behind the brother. His screams faded into the distance. The shaking did not stop. If anything, it grew worse. Cracks spread across the courtyard like spider webs. Parts of the palace wall began to crumble. Stone fell from towers. People screamed and ran for safety. The king held onto a pillar, struggling to stay upright. Aaron, he shouted over the noise. Make it stop, please. Aaron stood calmly in the center of the chaos. The ground shook around him, but he did not fall. It was as if the earth itself avoided harming him. I cannot stop it, Aaron replied. Only you can. How? The king demanded. Tell me what to do. The sacred ground demands humility, Aaron said. It demands acknowledgement. You must confess what your father did. You must admit the sin upon which this kingdom stands. The king looked at his people. They watched him waiting. His advisors shook their heads frantically. Your Majesty, if you confess, you lose legitimacy, Lady Amara warned. The people will turn against you. But the king looked at Aaron. At the man who had waited 7 years in rags. At the man who had suffered for truth. Slowly the king knelt. Right there, in the cracking courtyard, he knelt in the dust. People of this kingdom, the king called out, his voice breaking. I must tell you a terrible truth. The shaking paused, as if the earth itself was listening. My father built this palace on stolen ground, sacred ground. He murdered an innocent man to claim it. He buried the body beneath our feet. Our wealth, our power, our pride. All of it stands on blood and lies. The crowd was silent, horrified. I did not commit this crime, the king continued, tears streaming down his face. But I benefit from it every day. I sit on a throne built on murder. And for that I am sorry. For that I beg forgiveness. From the spirits, from the keeper's family, from all of you. He looked at Aaron. And most of all from Aaron. A loyal man who lost everything because my family valued lies more than justice. The king pressed his forehead to the ground. I am sorry. We are sorry. This kingdom is sorry. For a long moment nothing happened. Then slowly the shaking stopped. The cracks in the ground ceased spreading. Dust settled. Silence filled the courtyard. Aaron closed his eyes. The earth accepts your confession, he whispered. Dawn light broke through the clouds. It had been a long night, but morning finally came. The sun's rays touched the palace gate, and something beautiful happened. The cracks that had split the gate began to seal themselves. Blue light pulsed once more, then faded. Stone knit back together until the gate looked whole again, stronger than before. Flowers sprouted between the courtyard tiles. Small purple blooms pushing through stone. Birds returned, singing in the palace trees. The air, which had felt heavy with anger, became light again. The palace well began to flow. Water bubbled up, sweet and clear. Servants rushed to it, crying with joy. The royal horses calmed. They walked peacefully past the gate, no longer afraid. Peace returned. Not perfect, not complete, but real. Earned peace. The king stood and looked around. His kingdom was changing. He could feel it. Truth had broken something, but it had also healed something. Where is he? Someone asked. The crowd looked around. Aaron had been standing in the center of the courtyard moments ago. But now he was gone. Guards searched the palace. Servants looked in every room. Nobles checked the gardens. But Aaron had vanished completely. All they found was his beggar's staff, leaning against the palace gate. Beside it lay his torn cloak, folded neatly. He cannot just disappear, Lady Amara said, confused. But Aaron had done exactly that. After 7 years of waiting, after truth had been spoken and justice served, he had simply walked away. No fanfare. No reward demanded. Just gone. The king picked up the staff. It was carved with symbols, the same symbols from the sacred ground below. He held it carefully, reverently. He came for justice, not glory, the king said softly. And now that justice is done, he has no need to stay. People gathered around the gate, touching the stones, whispering prayers of thanks. Some wept, others smiled. All of them felt changed. A small girl tugged on her father's sleeve. Papa, look. She pointed toward the forest edge. There, barely visible in the morning mist, stood a figure. Free. It is him, the girl cried. People rushed to the wall to see. The figure stood at the forest's edge, clear and solid. Not a ghost, not a vision. Just Aaron looking back at the palace one last time. The king wanted to call out, to thank him, to offer him anything. Wealth, titles, a home. But something stopped him. This was not a moment for rewards. This was a moment for letting go. The small girl slipped through the crowd. Before her parents could stop her, she ran across the open ground toward Aaron. Her little legs carried her fast. Wait, she called. Please wait. Aaron turned. He smiled at the child, a real smile, warm and kind. She reached him, breathless. Are you leaving? She asked. Yes, little one. But why? The king will give you anything. You can live in the palace. You can be a guard again. Aaron knelt down to her level. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Tell them something for me, he said softly. Tell them the gate remembers kindness. Tell them to be good to those who wait at their doors. Because you never know who they might be. The girl nodded seriously. I will tell them. Aaron stood and walked into the forest. The trees swallowed him. Within moments he was gone. Things changed after that day. The king issued a decree. The palace gate would never be closed again. From sunrise to sunset, it would remain open. More than that, beggars were no longer turned away. Every person who came to the gate hungry was fed. Every person who came thirsty was given water. Every person who came tired was offered rest. A special guard was assigned to watch the gate, not to keep people out but to welcome them in. The king himself often came to sit at the gate in the evening, speaking with travelers and poor folk, listening to their stories. The sacred ground beneath the palace was blessed by forest keepers. They performed ceremonies to honor the murdered man. His name, which had been forgotten, was carved into a stone memorial. Ao, son of the forest, murdered for greed, remembered with sorrow. Trade improved. Crops grew rich. The well never dried again. It was as if the kingdom had been holding its breath for years, and finally it could breathe. People told the story of the beggar at the gate. They told it to their children, who told it to their children. The lesson spread beyond borders. Now you have heard the story. The tale of the beggar who slept at the palace gate for 7 years. The man who waited with impossible patience. The guard who lost everything but gained something greater, truth. There are people at every gate. People we ignore. People we step over. People we dismiss as worthless. But listen carefully. Some of them are not begging for mercy. They are waiting for justice. Some of them know secrets we have buried. Some of them remember sins we want to forget. And some of them have the patience to wait until truth can no longer be denied. The gate remembers. The stones remember. And somewhere in every kingdom, in every palace, in every heart, there is a beggar waiting. The question is not whether they will speak. The question is whether you will listen before it is too late. Beware the ones you ignore at the gate. They may be angels. They may be demons. Or they may simply be witnesses to the truth you fear most. What lesson would you take from this story? Would you open your gate? Or would you keep it closed until the stones themselves crack open? Remember, the gate always remembers.